Being nice can be one of the most dangerous things you do if you don't know when to stop. Think about the person who always says yes. They answer everyone's messages, they forgive quickly, they avoid arguments, they help even when they're exhausted. And when someone hurts them, they usually say, "It's okay." But here's the uncomfortable part. Sometimes the world doesn't interpret your kindness as kindness, it interprets it as permission. And that is where the dark side of being too nice begins. Imagine this. You have a friend who constantly asks you for favors. The first time, you help. The second time, you help again. The 10th time, you're exhausted, but you still say yes. Then one day, you finally say no, and suddenly they act surprised. Maybe they become angry. Maybe they say you've changed. But notice something strange. You didn't suddenly become a bad person. You simply stopped being convenient. And this reveals one of the most uncomfortable truths about human behavior. People don't always react to your boundaries based on how fair they are. They often react based on what they've become accustomed to receiving from you. If you've trained someone to expect unlimited access to your time, attention, money, energy, or forgiveness, your first boundary can feel like an attack to them. And that's why overly nice people often experience something confusing. They give more, but somehow receive less respect. Why? Because kindness and people-pleasing may look almost identical from the outside, but psychologically, they're completely different. A kind person helps because they genuinely want to. A people-pleaser helps because they're afraid of what will happen if they don't. And your brain can become addicted to that approval. Someone asks for something, you feel uncomfortable saying no, you say yes, they appreciate you. For a moment, you feel relieved. Your brain learns something. Keeping people happy keeps me safe. So the next time someone asks, you say yes even faster. Eventually, saying no starts feeling selfish. And this is where the trap becomes deeper. You may start believing that being a good person means being available all the time. But imagine a phone battery. If you keep giving your battery to everyone else without ever charging it, eventually you don't become more generous. You become empty. And an empty person can't give from love anymore. They give from resentment. That's why one of the biggest warning signs of being too nice isn't saying yes. It's secretly becoming angry after saying yes. You agree to help someone, then spend the next 6 hours thinking, why do they always do this to me? You say, no problem. But inside, there is a problem. And here's the part most people miss. The other person may not even know you're upset because you trained them to believe you're okay. You smiled, you said yes, you told them it was fine. So from their perspective, everything was fine. This creates one of the most painful cycles in relationships. You don't communicate your boundary. They cross a boundary they didn't know existed. You become resentful. Then you suddenly explode. And they wonder, where did all of this come from? But there is another psychological reason overly nice people can become easy to manipulate. They often reveal what they fear. Maybe you hate disappointing people. Maybe you can't handle being misunderstood. Maybe conflict makes you extremely uncomfortable. Maybe you need everyone to think you're a good person. And once someone discovers what you're afraid of, they don't need to control you directly. They can simply press the button. Come on, I thought you were my friend. After everything I've done for you, you're really going to say no? You've changed. Notice what happened. Nobody forced you, but suddenly you feel guilty. And guilt can be a very powerful remote control. This doesn't mean everyone who makes you feel guilty is manipulating you. Sometimes people are genuinely hurt. Sometimes you really did make a mistake. The point is to recognize the difference between responsibility and emotional pressure. A healthy relationship allows you to say no without making you prove that you're still a good person. And this brings us to a strange paradox. The more desperately you try to prove that you're a good person, the easier it becomes for people to take advantage of you. Because you're no longer acting from your values, you're acting from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of conflict, fear of being misunderstood, fear of becoming the villain in someone else's story. And here's something you may need to hear. You are allowed to disappoint someone. You are allowed to be misunderstood. You are allowed to say, I can't do that, without writing a 5-minute explanation afterward. In fact, watch what happens when you start doing this. The people who genuinely care about you will adjust. They may be surprised at first, but they'll respect the boundary. The people who benefited from you having no boundaries may react very differently. They may guilt trip you, they may become distant, they may tell you that you've changed. And strangely enough, that reaction can give you information. Because sometimes losing someone's approval is not the price of becoming a worse person. It's the price of finally becoming an honest one. But don't make the opposite mistake. The answer isn't to become cold. It isn't to stop helping people. It isn't to treat kindness like weakness. Real strength isn't refusing everyone. Real strength is being able to choose. You can help without being used. You can forgive without reopening the same door. You can be generous without destroying yourself. You can love someone without becoming responsible for their happiness. And you can have a soft heart with a firm boundary. So the next time someone asks you for something, don't immediately say yes. Pause. Ask yourself one simple question. If I knew they wouldn't be disappointed with me, would I still want to do this? If the answer is yes, help them. If the answer is no, you may finally be hearing your own voice underneath all that people-pleasing. Because being kind should never require you to disappear. And maybe the greatest lesson isn't learning how to be less nice. It's learning how to stop confusing kindness with self-abandonment. Because the moment you realize that your worth doesn't depend on how useful you are to other people, you stop begging to be needed. You start choosing who deserves your energy. And that's when kindness stops being a weakness. It becomes a choice. And the most powerful person in the room isn't always the loudest one. Sometimes it's the person who can say no without hating themselves for it.